And I really understood that this is one of the things that that the communities are about, and movements are about. They're building arks. They're places of refuge, places of protection, places where life is being preserved. And of course, at some stage there, the ark will settle, and then you go out of the ark and go back into the world, you know. But right now, at that time, the call that I heard very clearly was build the ark. And so I devoted the next number of years to that task of being involved with covenant communities and working to build covenant communities, to build the ark. One of the other things that came through at that time, and partly through Ralph Martin, who first alerted me to it, was the sense that where Ralph Martin spoke about the crisis of truth. It was the beginnings of the process where people were starting to doubt basic Christian moral and faith teachings and starting to question and challenge and so on, and watering down the faith. And I realised that was a very important thing for us to be involved with, to actually preserve, and in these arcs, preserve the integrity of Christian teaching and Christian way of life. And so I was very much involved in that process. As I moved on into the 90s, there was one text that was almost used to burn my heart, and I don't say that lightly because it really. And I used to go back to it again and again. It's from Psalm 80. You brought a vine out of Egypt, and to plant it you drove out the nations. You cleared a place for it, it took root and filled the whole country. The mountains were covered with its shade, and the cedars of God with its branches. Its boughs stretched as far as the sea, its shoots as far as the river. Why have you broken down its fences? Every passerby plucks its grapes. Boars from the forest tear at it. Wild beasts feed on it. God, Sabaoth, come back, we pray. Look down from heaven and see. Visit this vine. Protect what your right hand has planted. They've thrown it out on a fire like dung. The frown of your rebuke will destroy them. I heard that about the church. That God had created the church and spread across the world, spread everywhere. But now it was the walls were broken down, and everybody could come and just pluck what they wanted, just rip off, and they wanted to. And the boar of the forest would come, the tusks, you imagine the tusks getting there and ripping up the vines that had been planted so they could no longer produce any fruit. It's a very vivid image of what was happening in the church at this time in the early 1990s. And I just found myself having like a deep, passionate concern. It was breaking my heart to see what was happening in the church, and it was something that I felt myself constantly interceding, praying for the church. And I saw so many things. In one sense, I felt myself powerless, completely powerless. I couldn't do anything but cry out to God, Lord, look down from heaven and see. Visit this vine and protect it, the vine your right hand has planted. Don't abandon the church. Don't leave us to the boar of the forest and the people coming and plucking what they like and destroying what was there, because that's what I sensed was happening. And and that was breeding in me a great burden for the church. And and it was something, sometimes you receive something that's just planted so deep in you, even you might not be deeply aware of it, but it somehow becomes the animation to what you do, what you say, and what your life is about. It just becomes, and I think it still is the great burden that continues to be a source of my own life, my priestly life, my ministry, but I'm seeing the Lord coming to our aid, reaching out to save us. In all of this, I probably should say a couple more things. In at this time too, the figure that in the 1990s, the figure that really came to be very important for me was John Paul II. And I saw him as a great gift to the church. In the midst of the church being attacked and destroyed, I saw the Lord providentially sending this remarkable man, this extraordinary man. And I remember reading virtually, certainly every encyclical he wrote and many other things constantly. And he became the solace and the encouragement to my priesthood and my life. When you had a sense it's going to be all right, because the Lord has given us someone who can take us forward and lead us out of this darkness and help us to restore what needs to be restored in the church and to rebuild some of those walls so that it can be protected once again. So John Paul II became a very important gift for me in my priesthood. And one of the particular gifts of John Paul II was his increasing and more urgent speaking about the new evangelisation. And when I heard that for the first time, and when I began to read more of what he was saying, it became the great direction for my life. And I felt it was the call that God was giving me in terms of meeting the needs of the time. And so I have a very strong commitment to promotion and development of the new evangelisation. I think it's the way the church needs to respond to the challenges of our time. And so I've been very involved in that right up till just recently here in Sydney, putting on a congress on the new evangelisation to keep promoting and encouraging the notion of the new evangelisation as a key way forward for us.